Today, Amazon is one of the most valuable companies in the entire world, but like Rome, it wasn't built in a day. Jeff Bezos would fit in quite well in Rome, with an empire that has given him the kind of wealth Caesars envy. This is a story of how one man taught the world how to sell stuff on the internet. It's the story of how Jeff Bezos built Amazon. Did you say your toddler dismantled his crib with a screwdriver? If this is in the 1960s, then I must tell you, ma'am, your son is going to be filthy rich. Bezos learned to use his hands early in life while helping out on his grandparents' ranch in Texas. There, he learned the art of castrating bulls and fixing windmills. He was still in high school when he launched one of his very first entrepreneurial ventures. For a smart boy like him, working at McDonald's was just too tedious, so he started his own thing. The Dream Institute was a 10-day summer camp for kids where he made them read the Lord of the Rings series, amongst other creative exercises. The Brainiac was a high school valedictorian before he graduated summa cum laude from Princeton University in 1986. And yes, billionaires with college degrees are not as rare as 5-star reviews for the Catwoman movie. As a top-shelf computer science and electrical engineering graduate, his mind was in demand. Tech giants like Bell Labs and Intel tried to recruit him, but he opted for Fitel instead. After 2 years at the fintech startup and another 2-year stint at Bankers Trust, he landed a job at D.E. Shaw & Co. And at age 30, 3 years after joining the New York-based hedge fund, he was its youngest senior vice president. But something sparked in him after he read that the World Wide Web was growing by 2,300% per year. He realized he could be making more than his nice executive salary. He was a rabbit learning it could farm its greens. In 1994, against D.E. Shaw's wishes, Bezos quit his job and set his sights on creating Amazon.com. For his initial capital, he took loans from friends and family. His parents made the biggest bet on his crazy adventure with $250,000 investment. Along with his novelist wife Mackenzie Scott, Bezos moved into a rented house in Seattle, Washington, D.C., where he began molding his dream in the garage. He knew online retailing was his calling, but didn't know what to sell. To identify this, he listed 20 possible products, and books won the Royal Rumble. Books were his choice at the time, mainly because people still read. Also, the biggest bookstores could only hold a limited number of titles, and most didn't offer out-of-print books. With the commodities figured out, he set out to build the software for Amazon.com. He and his 5-person staff schemed for months on how to seize the book market. Funnily, they had many of their meetings in the neighboring Barnes & Noble store. He must have wanted to see the place before he made it a relic. And that didn't take long, because by 1995, they'd sold their first book. Back then, a bell rang every time they made a sale. But in some weeks, it was ringing so frequently that they had to get rid of it. Amazon.com owed its early success to its user-friendly interface and 24-hours-a-day service. Besides these, it also offered discounts, custom recommendations, and spaces for reviewers to spoil the stories for everybody else. Fast forward to the 15th of May 1997, the day Jeff Bezos took Amazon.com public. By then, old-school retailers had gone online. Barnes & Noble were boasting a selection doubling the number of titles Amazon.com offered. But Bezos was way ahead of the game. By 1998, he had added CDs and videos to Amazon.com's portfolio. New money from investors allowed Bezos to fund innovations and buy into other virtual stores and tech startups like Google. Meanwhile, he entered the $1 billion club. In the early 2000s, virtually every virtual business was hit by the crash of the dot-com bubble. While other startups sank, Amazon.com stayed afloat. The company passed its toughest tests at the time and looked invincible. As internet use exploded, Amazon followed in its lockstep. By 2005, the site was selling electronic appliances, clothing, and hardware. Following a hunch in 2006, Bezos changed the trajectory of the company forever. If it was going to the moon before, well, it was now heading for the stars with the introduction of Amazon Web Services, aka AWS. Initially, the cloud computing services of AWS were developed to help Amazon and its third-party partners. But time soon made it a behemoth. It would be bigger than Google's and Microsoft's models. But more importantly, AWS would become Amazon's money machine, supplying most of the company's revenue. As if taking hardcover book sales online wasn't enough, Amazon presented Kindle in 2007. Through Amazon's e-reader, users could access thousands of virtual books in the Kindle store for the first time. By 2010, Amazon announced virtual book sales had surpassed hardcovers, and you could hear paper mills hissing in fury. The money from AWS and other ventures strengthened Amazon and allowed the company to further diversify its interests. But testing new terrains meant failure was inevitable. Amazon Web Store, Amazon Destinations, the Fire Phone, and Quidsi are just some of the company's many unrewarding attempts. Still, Prime and Amazon Logistics are some additions that have reinforced Amazon's ambition to keep ruling the e-commerce world. Then, in 2017, the company decided to splurge its internet money on brick-and-mortar retailing by acquiring Whole Foods for $13.7 billion. You know, just in case people stop using the internet, they might still get hungry. After all of its enormous strides, Amazon would yet receive an assist from an unlikely ally. In 2020, COVID-19 forced everyone to stay indoors for so long that people miss making friends in public bathrooms. Living under lockdown meant people needed stuff they couldn't go out and get. Most times, people just bought stuff online for fun. Like, seriously, nobody needed hair dryers that made laughing noises. Amazon's sales soared, and its revenue numbers were better than they had ever been. Thanks partially to this serendipitous growth, Bezos had a first too. In 2020, he became the first man to cross the $200 billion mark. While his fortunes and Amazon's have skyrocketed, the two inseparable entities have come under great scrutiny. Bezos for his demanding leadership style, unfair treatment of workers, and in the past his stubborn frugality. As for Amazon, it's come under fire for its working conditions and data security and antitrust problems. But 25 years after his modest start, in July 2021, Bezos stepped down as CEO of Amazon. He handed the reins to former AWS CEO Andy Jassy, but retained a place on the board as the executive chairman. He'd earlier said he wanted to focus on his charities, the Day One Fund and the Bezos Earth Fund. He also said he would give his time and energy to Blue Origin, the space rocket company he started in 2000, and Washington Post, which he acquired for $250 million in 2013. And in November of 2022, he told CNN that he would give most of his fortune to charity. In Bezos' mind, it's always day one. Those words have been his philosophy and sewn into the fabric of Amazon's customer-centric mindset. Bezos is a data-driven risk-taker who is never afraid to start afresh and fail. According to him, to invest, you have to experiment. And if you know in advance that it's going to work, it's not an experiment. This is the part where you like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of successful business owners. Until the next video, take care.